We're back at it again, trying to get ourselves prepared for Norfolk. The routine has gone good so far. We practiced this morning. Thought practice went good. Got a lot of issues dealing with an offense that we don't necessarily have a good grip on exactly what they're trying to do. They seem to be moving around in a fashion where they could be different from one week to another. So sometimes you got to kind of get a guesstimate of sorts of what we think they're going to do, but they really do have decent personnel throughout, and they got good ideas about doing a lot of different things. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how we go about getting them shut down. And then Pete always gives us a hard time defensively. They are a hard-nosed style run defense that we've had hard times in the past being able to run against. So, we'll have our work cut out there also.
Coach, given the last 2 weeks, which Norfolk State team do you expect to show up?
You know what? I told our kids this morning we expect the same team that showed up at Bethune 2 weeks ago. I'm definitely not looking for the team that showed up at Central this past Saturday. Listen to that last game. I'm sure it's their kid's senior day. You'll get their best shot.
For yourself also, the goal is still there now to at least get a share of the conference title and just wait on the playoffs. Just how much having that incentive makes this last week of practice even more easier to deal with?
Well, you always happy to be relative at this time of the year to actually have something to practice for. And, we got the ultimate prize. The conference championship is still available to us. So, it makes practicing for us pretty easy. I don't have to motivate our guys to practice much at all. Our guys really seem to be into it, and I'm looking forward to seeing exactly how they go out and play on Saturday, because they do seem to be really enthusiastic about trying to get a little bit better each day.
You said you weren't surprised. On Thursday, you said you wouldn't be surprised if Bethune had gotten things back on track. Exactly what they did against Hampton. Do you expect the same effort against Florida A&M?
Oh, I guarantee you. I'm a big Rattle fan this week. It's not that I'm rooting against Bethune. I'm just rooting for Florida A&M. But at the same time, I root for all our conference foes. And we just kind of let the chip fall where they may. I fully expected Bethune to get back to playing good, and I think it's a good thing for our league to have teams that play great. I do expect Bethune to play good this weekend, and if that means that it hurts us in the long run, then so be it. But at the same time, it is a situation where we just need to handle our business, and if we deserve to be in, then we'll be in. If not, then then we go to the house.
Speaking on that point, do you think, regardless of how it turns out, does this conference deserve 2 teams in the playoffs?
Well, I think we deserve to be in. I don't know what I don't know if we are what this conference is, or if there is a reason why we should or should not deserve to have 2 teams in. I don't necessarily want to discuss that point as much as I want to make sure that I make it understood that South Carolina State's got one of the best defenses in the country. We may have the best defense in the country. I put us up against anybody, and our special teams are playing extremely well. The fact now that our offense really seems to be catching fire, and we're starting to try to understand, what works for this offense, I think is really, another indication of why we ought to be in. So my point is that I think South Carolina State's good enough to be in the playoffs, and that's what we're going to go on, as opposed to somebody else, being, losing a game that will give us an opportunity to get in, the automatic way.
Just with the offense, how much was, I guess, college appearance may have been a revelation?
Well, it's some of both. We've got some methods that we've got to fix, got to work on from time to time. I thought our offensive line played a lot better. One of the things that we did was to get Coach Blackwell upstairs in the last game. He was able to see a lot of what was going on with his group better, to make adjustments maybe, in a little different way, to make especially corrective measurements within the offensive line in a better way. So we seem to hope, we seem to keep tinkering, trying to figure out, what works best for us over time. That group played the best it's played, and we got Javars Lehman going. We're excited about him and the fact that he's, we think a difference maker in the offensive front that way. Tristan Bellamy had been playing great. The rest of our offensive line has shown signs of playing good, but Javar's played the best he's played all year. And we actually toyed around all weekend with trying to decide, who we recommend, for offensive lineman of the week this week in the MAC, because we ended up recommending Tristan. But it was a hard recommendation not to recommend Lehman because he played so very well. But we just didn't feel like, we could disrespect Tristan in a way that, because he played the best of all of them for sure, that we not recommend them, even though we thought that Lehman played very, very well.
Sort of a return of sorts for a few people. First off, talking about both Virginia natives, Mason Harris and Justin Hughes coming back home.
Mm-hmm. Both those guys are from right there around that Virginia Beach area, Norfolk area. And both guys have grown up here at South Carolina State. Mason's really played well here for the last half of this year. Has been one of the leaders of our team. Justin has played up and down. He played really well toward the end of last year and started off playing pretty well this year. And then he kind of hit kind of a lull. He's starting to play better again now. We've actually put Tevin ahead of him for a while, and Tevin played really, really well. Part of what's happening is that we play a rotation of guys in that inside linebacker position between Joe and Brock and Tevin and Justin. So all those guys play a good bit, but both those guys are good football players and a big part of what our program's about here. And we look forward to trying to take these guys back home and playing well for their relatives and friends and all their family that should be at the game on Saturday.
It's also a return for Coach Blackwell going back to a place he worked for 2 years. Is he going to have extra incentive?
I'm sure he will. I'm sure there'll be lots of extra incentive on both sides, and we'll have a lot of fun with that on the way in and out of there. Coach Blackwell has not worked at both places, and I'm sure his reputation precedes him, or whatever the heck he trying to say in that particular situation.
Looking at this last game, just for this team itself, how much do you want to get the win, and then how much is it sort of going to be a sleepless night just waiting to see if they're going to be eligible or not? You know what?
We're going. I'm more about us playing good than anything else. We would love to be in the playoffs, but this is more important for us to go out and play the very best we can. If somebody decides that we are or are not good enough to be in the playoffs, then we'll kind of simply just let that happen in a way where it's just business as usual. I don't necessarily think that I can. Of course, I don't sleep anyway. You talk about sleepless nights. You went there. But I'll probably sleep better that night than I would ordinarily because of the fact that the season's kind of come winding down and that kind of stuff. But when you start talking about sleepless nights, every night for me is a sleepless night. Anytime you're responsible for 118 to 23-year-olds, you better bet you better kind of sleep light, because you do get an interesting call or two from time to time.
I guess also it's one last go around for these seniors, and just you talked about how this group has helped turn this program around in a year. How much do you think it would mean more for them if they're able to get into the playoffs?
Well, last year's crowd, was a good group of kids, young men, I guess maybe I ought to say, and we were awfully proud of them. But this crowd is going to be always a little bit special because they got us back going again. And I talked to them a little bit about this the other day, and the fact that after having had a little bit of a downtime, you can appreciate the success that we have this year in a way that makes it a little bit different kind of year for us. Yeah, I think you're proud of these guys. We have some really good quality, mature men on this football team, and I don't necessarily want to get into names, that kind of stuff, but I can tell you that they drove us in a way, leadership-wise, as a group, our senior class in particular, that I did not necessarily know we had at the beginning of the season. So you're talking about a top-notch group of guys, and I'm really appreciative to them, and hoping that we can do all we can to make this last game for them special.
Well, you're gonna be right there in Norfolk. I guess you expect the commissioner there to be on hand with the trophy?
You know what, I don't know exactly how that works, because when you're talking about Coles and him being there as opposed to him being in Florida, you know, I don't know exactly where he'd be under those circumstances. He will probably be, I would think, at the Bethune Florida A&M game, because, you know, at that particular place, you got if they win, the automatic qualifier. And, you know, with that being the case, I would think that he won't be there if that was the case.
Any chance of y'all after the game being able to catch the end of it?
Catch the end of that game? We could, but, you know, not necessarily. You know, scores for us are just as good as all we want to know is the score. We don't know what happened. We don't necessarily want to see the game. You know, I see enough football that I think I can, you know, I can bypass seeing another college football game. At the same time, you know, all we'd be interested in is actually hearing what the scores are.
Because the only thing is a separate issue from South Carolina State. Of course, this past weekend, the CIAA had to cancel their game